that I'm absolutely convinced that if Christ and the Buddha were hanging out, they'd be they'd get it, you know? And where this actually ended up pointing me was into this space of, I was actually quite troubled by the fact that we seem to be so bent on articulating what path to take up this mountain. What path we should take up this mountain of spirit, as opposed to talking about the mountain itself. Or as Randy pointed out, you know, this oceanic experience, this deep, placid infinite, out of which springs life, out of which indeed springs all things. What is our relationship to all those things, including ourselves? And then how do we actually commingle that with others? Is there a way that we could take this divine, mysterious information and actually allow it to help us deepen whatever tradition we find ourselves in? Whether we are Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or Jew, is there a way that our lenses could be just wiped a little bit cleaner so that we can see ourselves through everybody else's eyes? And in doing this, we begin to create a tradition that's a little more integrated. Got a philosopher that I quite like named Ken Wilber, he says, you know, no one is smart enough to be 100% wrong. And I just love that. Yeah, no one is smart enough to be 100% wrong. There is value in every single one of the traditions. And if we adhere too much to any particular path, we lose sight. And the view is great the higher you get. You know, they all say that. Every single faith, every single wisdom tradition points this out. Well, how do we incorporate that into something? And this is why Randy gives me grief about this. You're a Buddhist, right? Well, yeah, that was my training. My training was Buddhist. But I don't know that that's an appropriate label. Well, you're integral, right? Kind of one of those integral guys. Well, okay, yeah, to an extent I'm integral, I guess you could say that. But I don't know that it really matters. I think what does really matter is that we pursue this mystery. We pursue the unknown as much as we pursue the known. And that balance right there allows us to see some really significant things. And I'll just kind of lay this out for you real briefly. In the integral community, where we kind of look at all traditions and all faiths and kind of say, you know, there's some value here that we can weave into experience, to our experience that would actually deepen our faith or our practice or whatever you want to call it. We can look at spirit in three ways: from the third person, it; from the second person, thou; and from the first person, I. And if we start looking at it from the third person, we're objectifying it. And this is, universities do a marvelous job of this. Theological seminaries do a marvelous job of this. Let's look at the issue of God, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, as out there, okay? We can take it apart. We can look at Scripture. You get the idea? You understand what I'm saying? It's it. Spirit as it. And then we can look at spirit as thou. Thou. Okay? Thou meaning second person. God, I humble myself before thee. Get the idea? It's me in here, God out there. Religion does a fantastic job of this, okay? Religions traditionally, and traditions themselves, really bring out this beautiful richness to the second person experience of spirit. And then there's the first person experience, representation here of spirit, which is I am. That in this very awareness, there is God. That there is no such moment when God is not right here. The direct realization of an effulgent truth is never not at hand. All right? That's first person. So you with me so far? You get this third, second, and first person. Integrating all these together, weaving these all together, what do we get? We get something actually that goes past and yet includes wherever we're from. Whether we are Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Jew, whatever, we can take this and begin to create a new container rather than sitting in a situation where each version of God, first, second, and third person, are fighting with each other saying, we're right, you're wrong. That dualism right there is the birth of war. Whether it's fundamentalist in its orientation or not, we're at war. We're not where? At peace, which is what I always wanted. And I think this exploration for me continues to be just the most amazing thing. I continually tell the people that show up to our Sangha meetings, they, listen to me speak, I have nothing for you. Again, great selling point, huh? I have nothing for, I really don't have, I am not pretending to be anything other than a totally normal guy who has had the benefit of amazing teaching and amazing teachers and amazing spiritual friends that have worked to support what I consider to be pretty important work in this day and age, when we are watching fundamentalism just ignite around the planet. There is an antidote to this. And this antidote is not to get fundamentalist about fundamentalism. The antidote here is to actually begin to open ourselves to the deeper truths that have always been available, and yet we can't seem to find because we think they're somewhere outside of ourselves. They are right here all the time. They're never not here. Thank you.
Okay, so my job is to see if we can get a little conversation going between the three of us, and I wrote notes, copious notes on you three. Do you have something that you would like to ask each other before I get rolling, or are you comfortable with me asking questions? Randy, you're up first. Oh boy. So you,
I have a question for Randy, if that's okay.
What's that?
I have a question for Randy.
Yeah, go ahead. Start out.
Too late. Sorry. But does that make sense? I mean, you and I have sat down over lunch before, and we've talked about this idea of where is there not God, And do you find that in your tradition, or that your experience now, that has become more of a center of gravity for you than it was when you were an actual minister?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's crucial. It's a crucial distinction. I think there is a difference in fairness between Eastern and Western traditions, how that's framed out.
Yes.
God as a personal being. I think in the West we tend to look at that relationally.
Yeah.
Whereas
meaning I'm in here and God's out there.
It's more of the second person thing you were talking about. But that first person is there.
Yeah.
It's sort of latent in the tradition. And parts of, along the way, groups that held that first person thing wound up in the shadow, in the collective shadow of the Christian history.
And paradoxically,
the Gnostics, the various groups like that.
And there's nothing, what's so interesting about that is that in my experience as somebody who's kind of teaching this stuff now, I do not see that sitting still in meditation, which is at the core of our work, sitting still in meditation does not undo the effects of the shadow. Meditation will not undo that. That is something, that's a gift that the West actually has, I think, to offer the tradition. I'm sorry, we kind of went off there.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Yes,
You all follow that okay? Well, my question a little bit was on the notion of symbols, Randy. You talked about Jung thinking about religion from everything's kind of functions as symbol. But it seems to me like in most traditions, it starts out as history, some sort of historical context, right? And at some point, Jung then transforms it into symbol. And I'm just wondering about the interplay between, the unfolding of history and the managing of these deeper symbols, and how that kind of balance happens. I mean, do I look at my own life and go, well, my own life is falling apart, but maybe that's just, a deeper symbol for what's going on. When does history and symbol, how do they talk to each other? So could you unpack that a little bit?
Oh boy. Well, with respect to the tradition, to Christianity and the founding story.
Right.
Because that's where I thought you were going when you brought my own personal experience.
Right, a little bit of both the founding story and my own personal
Jung
story.
doesn't deny that there was a figure of Jesus.
Right.
But what he says is that he, and we can speculate as to why, but he attracted all of these archetypes and all of this projection in a way that probably was much more intense than most other figures. As a matter of fact, we might even use that as a definition of these great religious founders, the Buddha and Christ.
Right.
And for some reason, they were in a unique time and place where they attracted all of this projection of these inner potentials that got interwoven with their story, and now that's being reflected back to us or given back to us in their story. There's a reflexive nature, reflexive thing going on there to try to ferret out the history from, if I may use the word, the mythology that attaches to it is an impossible task.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, we are obsessed with history, and that's fine. We in the West are obsessed with fact and history, and we want to come to the gospel with that. But that's kind of a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Well, what's the facts? What really happened? We keep asking those questions, and I think in a way they deflect or distract us from the truth that is embedded in that story. Because from a Jungian point of view, the gospel is authentic. That's the word I like.
Authentic.
It's true in the sense that it's authentic.
Right.
I don't. We can argue about the history, but we can't. From a Jungian point of view, the psychology is authentic. It's right on the beat.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's something guiding that story and shaping it outside of the journalism. Okay, Jesus stopped here, he went there, he did this, he did that. It's not a factual story. It's an unfolding of something deeper.
Right. In a sense, we're projecting these ancient oceanic symbols onto this character, and then he becomes a reflection of those for us.
Absolutely.
So you would say that we could, if paying attention to Jesus as the Christ, is to watch ourselves.
Yes. Absolutely.
Which is first person.
Yeah, which
Taking
is
on the second person richness the tradition can offer.
So I can see, from the pulpit, we always try to say, well, how does this apply to you? But in reality, what you're saying is, it is you.
Yep.
There's no reason to apply it. You are unfolding in the way in which the Christ has been projected in our own story. That's what I'm hearing you say.
The psyche creates those stories.
Right.
And the psyche is, we are that.
Yeah.
That
You should be happy to go to church on Sunday morning. Shouldn't your psyche be delighting in the unfolding of the story of the Christ because it's actually you unfolding in the story? Strange that we objectify it. That's great. That's great. And didn't you like that answer? Such a smart guy. Oh, that little side note made me forget what I was going to ask you, Michael. Dang, that ticks me off.
That's another one. You did so well with that one.
You really did a good job.
You guys are so smart. How about just talk about enlightenment?
No, I wasn't going to ask you, Michael. Let me look at my notes for a minute.
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. While I'm looking at my notes, you asked me a question.
Because Dan's not listening, Dan.
No, I'm multitasking. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I got one. Okay, go ask me now.
Ask you.
And then I'll come back with you.
You're such a smart guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really are. Do you ever find that intellect actually inhibits the recognition or veils awakening from your sight?
Yeah. I would say that when you feel like you're starting, and I bet this happens to a lot of you too, when you feel like you're starting to enter into the experience of the holy, the intellect steps right out in front of you and goes, let's not go there. So the intellect is a gatekeeper.
Or let's own
oftentimes.
this.
Or let's shape it in a way that you can make it logical and not, kind of deeper. So you all feel that way, right? You let your brain steps in front of the experience and then takes it over for you. That's what happens with Germans, and in particular, is that
it never happens with Scots.
Doesn't. We leap out in front of the very thing. So if I sit inside a meditation, I can go for a while, but then I start analyzing why this is going so well, and then your brain kicks in, and then it becomes a cerebral event rather than an existential event. So I'm my own. Would that be my shadow? That I was going to ask you something about shadow, but that would be a part of that. And Michael, can I throw one back to you? So the question I had for you is that you explored, I mean, a lot of us